Right, morning folks. Thanks for joining us at the College Marketing Network on our workshop Wednesday. Today we have the guys who are going to present the Prospectus Plus presentation, and it's about personalisation. So, we've got somebody else joining. There we go. So I shall keep admitting people because I'm sure people will keep joining, and I'm going to hand over now to the guys to introduce themselves and take it from there.
Thanks very much, Emma. Well, lovely to be here. Lovely to see you all in your little squares on Zoom. Yeah, as Emma said, we're here to talk about personalisation today, digital personalisation. Matt and I are from a company called Prospectus Plus, where we create a digital alternative to traditionally printed prospectuses. And we think a lot about personalisation within that product. But we're also joined by the brilliant Kyle Campbell from the Education Marketer, who, well, Kyle, how would you explain yourself, Kyle?
Well, today I'm your hype man, just setting things up. But yeah, I mean, I write marketing advice. I have a publication for essentially education marketers, which is why I named my company Education Marketer. And a couple of years ago, I noticed there was a bit of a gap for advice and content in that area. So for the last few years, I've been publishing as regularly as I can to make sure education professionals in our sector are heard. And personalisation is a topic I dip into occasionally. It's becoming increasingly popular with a lot of different trends going on. And here today, I'm just going to give you a bit of a landscape overview before we go into the meat of the session, which is the roundtable.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks, Kyle. So as Kyle has said, Kyle's got a great presentation around trends and personalisation and the power of personalisation. And then, as some of you may have already noticed, we have a poll that's running in the background as well, where you can vote on some questions that we have for you, and we'll run a discussion around some of the thoughts that have been captured there. But I'll shut up now, and Kyle, I'll hand over to you to talk more about personalisation.
Yeah, and thanks for inviting me to speak with you today, Nath. I really like personalisation, but it's so funny to look at it, how it's used in the education sector compared to other more private focus organisations. And there's a real gap between what's happening in education and what is happening elsewhere. And I remember when personalisation first started to gain a lot of momentum, and it was around like the mid 2000s through to the early 2010s. And in universities and education institutes, the first big adoption phase really in terms of technology and automation was the companies like Campaign Monitor, MailChimp, introducing this idea of the personalised email. And this is something that's become quite familiar to us all. We get emails of like, hey, first name at the top. Now, quite often in the sectors and the circles I move in, I sign up to lots of different comms to get an idea what people are sending out. And sometimes these emails come through and they've got the personalization. It's like, hey, first name, but it's in like a different font and it's broken, and it just destroys the illusion of what personalization tries to create. And I would have thought 10 years on, we would have probably moved on from doing like the hey, first name sort of stuff. But it looks like the only thing we've changed is the medium in which it comes to our inboxes. So quite common now, the understanding of personalization or high spec personalization is this idea of the personalized video, which is even stranger because you have a bunch of people who you don't know, like carving your name out in the sand or painting your name on a board. And if you think about it, if you lived in this universe, it would be really weird. So I don't know what kind of image like these agencies are trying to create, or what sort of value they're trying to add to that student journey, but I just don't see it. And, looking at the stats of how these things perform in education institutes, I don't think students see it either. So there's this sort of warped idea of what personalization is, when really it's something quite different today. And if you think about how we interact with personalization day to day, we often don't notice it. It's just become something that we expect. So a good way to think about it is that personalization is like everything the light touches. It's there, but you can't distinguish unless it isn't, sort of thing. If you're on a website and it's got no personalization, you quickly start to realize something is wrong. But it's so ubiquitous today, they've just become used to it. And you see this, rearing its head in social media. Look at the journey that social media has gone on in the last 4 to 5 years. We've had the advent and the growth of TikTok, which itself and its success is precedented on an incredible personalization engine. You open this app, it knows your thoughts, your feelings, your hopes, your dreams, your desires, and it's all based on the content that you've looked at over time and the various signals you have given as a user. Now, before this happened, social media used to be about friends, right? You used to go into Facebook, you used to see content from your friends. And over time, even Facebook, like the friend network, has relegated that sort of content to a secondary tab because they know content that's hyper-personalized from strangers is actually going to perform better. So think about that. You're actually more engaged with content from people you don't know and who have shared similar interests to you than your actual friends and family. This is how strong personalization can be when applied in a professional way. And we see it in other veils of life as well, in shopping. I'm willing to bet that everyone on this call today has used Amazon at some point. The number one way Amazon makes sales isn't through search and find products. It's through the personalization systems that they offer post-sale or while on site. So it's the products you buy extra as a result of your shopping habits, or it's as a result of the personalized emails that you would send to kick you into buying a product. Interestingly, Amazon has now taken a leaf out of TikTok's book, and they are introducing a personalized video-first shopping feed. So you'd use Amazon as an app, you just browse your way to a purchase in future, which is quite concerning, but this is the power of personalization and how shopping habits are changing. And when you think about Amazon and its adoption and how many people use it, you begin to see that personalization is more woven into our day-to-day life than we care to give it credit for. And the final sort of bit of contextualized information around this technology I'll give is, if you just look at the explosion in AI tech over the last, I think it's 5 months, isn't it, Nath? It's like been a really short window, all this stuff's gained momentum. But all of this, again, is precedented on this belief of personalized responses, personalized content. If you go to a search engine like Google, you type in a response and you get served a bunch of content that people have created that vaguely fits what you're looking for or matches it pretty much exact. But if you go to ChatGPT and you ask a specific inquiry, it will like develop a piece of content in front of your eyes that's bespoke to your request. So we've had search in the past, and now we're getting answer. So there's this real move now to people expecting this stuff in their day-to-day. ChatGPT now has 100 million users like worldwide. So this is not a small platform. This is something that's become part of what we do. So there's a few different caveats here, ways to think about this. Even if you're not using personalization and you still have a decent web experience, people are still frustrated when personalization isn't present on your website. So even if you've got a nice created website, you think everything's like ticking along quite nicely, if it's taking time for people to find stuff, they're having to wade through content that isn't appropriate for them, this causes frustration, and as a result will likely lead to a bounce or that customer going elsewhere. But actually, it's not all bad news, because if you develop a personalized experience that someone logs into or you create it for them, they're actually much more likely to hand over their data, which is actually very good if you're looking to re-engage someone further down the line. So the pluses and minuses going on here. So let's dive into a few examples of how personalization enters the education space. Now, when we talk about personalization, there seems to be this tendency to talk about automation. But actually, it doesn't always have to be that way. Some education institutions are leaning into literal human personalization, and they use peer-to-peer networks like Unibuddy, the Ambassador platform. There's all kinds of these things now that allow a prospective student to talk to a current student. And the idea behind this is you scale the personal, because you can't have hundreds of university staff ready to have one-to-one conversations with people, but you can do that with leveraging your own student body. So if you're looking to do something like this, there's loads of applications out there to help you do it. It's quite costly, but it has been proven to be effective. Now moving more into the technology side here, pretty much the number one reason someone enters your website in an education capacity is to look at course content. And often a pain point for users is comparing all the different options available to them. So a first level, like real ABC blocks personalization, is giving someone the capability to select and compare courses at a glance. So rather than hopping between URLs and doing something really awkward, you can just build a table using tools on the site. So you've got a personalized, like side-by-side comparison, real simple stuff. Then we get into next level, which is a little bit more complicated, but being adopted by a lot of education institutions. We have the idea of the digital lookbook, or the almost kind of like a prospectus, but not quite. So the idea is you go in via a form, you fill in your personal preferences, like the subject you want to study, where you are in the world, all this rich information. And in the back end of the CMS, you have all these blocks of content that are ready to go, and to populate a digital experience or a series of web pages based on your responses. So rather than having to go to a website as a whole and navigating around finding stuff, you have your personalized selection all in one place. We saw this quite heavily being implemented probably about 5 years ago, 7 years ago, with prospectuses in a print format. So you go online, you fill out preferences and what you wanted from your print prospectus, and you'd have this personalized thing arrive for your door with your name on the front, right? That's not so common now. People seem to move into this digital alternative. And then we get into the stuff that's really interesting. Okay, so these are a couple of institutions that are in the States. So they have a little bit more flexibility with data, but you can achieve the same results in the UK as long as you are careful with how you use someone's personal data. So this is actually quite a useful mechanism that Pace University has in place. They have recruitment events all around the country. And what they do is they take the location data based on the prospects that are browsing their website. And if they are appearing at an event near that prospect's address, they will share a personalized message with that event to that particular person. So if you've got an event, say, in one part of the UK, and someone browsing your website is also from that part of the UK, you could share them a personalized message with that event near them. Now, pop-ups are a little bit annoying, but the reason they're annoying is because often they're not relevant. But if you have a capability like this, you can actually share something that is useful. So it's not the most basic use of personalization, but this is where we start to get a bit more interesting and a bit more useful, and things that genuinely improve the conversion rate of events and other key points of your web journey like this. Now, the other end of the spectrum, and Nathan will probably have some more examples like this as well, but this is where you can actually do a lot more personalization. So this is a university that uses several different categories of personalization. The first one is that they can update their message on their homepage depending on where someone is in their applicant journey. So if they're a prospect, they get a different message, but if they're an applicant and return to the site, they will have different CTAs in that top banner. So maybe the university needs them to complete a certain thing to move to the next stage. They can share those messages at various different points. What's interesting is how they then lace that with another layer of personalization, depending on how many times they visited the site. So what the university does is, depending on where they are on the cycle and how many times they keep revisiting a web page, they will change how urgent the message is. So if they need someone to attend an event or do something on their application, and they visited 5 times already, that messaging will be more urgent to get them to complete that task versus if they've only just appeared on the site 1 time. So it can get quite complicated, but it's all automated. So the university doesn't need to worry about making sure this stuff fits together. The thing that's more compelling here for me isn't really like the push messaging necessarily, but the way in which the university serves content. So there's a section in the site where students can browse and get a sense of what that educational experience is like. And based on the personal data that they've collected from their prospects, they can actually serve a unique curated experience based on the interest that the students have told the university. So you can see here, it's in the bottom left, it's like a explore this university section. And those images and the content that populates that area will change based on that student's preferences. And if you think about a lot of institution websites, there's usually like an ethos about what they're about, what they represent, things you can get involved with. That's all static normally, but this actually changes depending on what will appeal most to the student. So there's lots of stuff going on in personalization. There's tons of places you can start, right from the basic to the more advanced sort of thing. And Nathan's got some decent thoughts on that. But basically, I think the takeaway is if you're not playing in this field, you probably should be, because it's just becoming a pretty much a staple thing of marketing and communications at this point. And with that, I'll hand back over to Nathan.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately, these are a lot of the reasons that we started building Prospectus Plus, the digital alternative to a traditionally printed prospectus. There are a whole heap of reasons, but we saw colleges, universities struggle with implementing personalisation, and actually we see the prospectus as a really neat and powerful way to do personalization right, but also do it really quickly as well. And as Carl's pointed out, it helps conversion so much that it's a really powerful tool in anybody's armory. And I know that there's many colleges that are already considering the switch to digital anyway, but this is one great reason to really consider that. So if anybody is interested in talking more about their prospectus and things like that, then that would be fantastic. But so to move on from this, what Matt and I are really interested in is understanding your wants and desires for personalization more than anything, really. So Emma, I think, oh, yes, perfect. Thank you. So there's a poll that's come on screen now. We'll give you a couple of seconds or so. And then Matt, I think you're going to kind of, you and me together are going to dissect the results in real time. Nothing like a live scary demo, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a kind of poll. It's got 3 questions in there. If you wouldn't mind answering those for us, and let's take a look at the results. Can you see these results as well, Matt?
I can see them coming through, yeah.
Cool. I mean, already really interesting, right, to see that people are using this in a limited context already, perhaps more than I assumed, really.
Yeah, this is looking really positive, isn't it?
Yeah, people are, the one I'm really interested to learn more about, I think, where have you deployed personalization? People are saying other more than anything else. So not necessarily website prospectus advertising. And actually the one that I see as the open goal website is the one that so far no one has ticked, which is quite interesting. But then, okay, so that makes sense when we look at question 3. How many are we at? 12 of 18. So a few of you still going with that poll there. But in question 3, it looks like the place where people want to introduce personalization is the website. I guess that totally makes sense, doesn't it? If people don't currently have it there. I think we'll give it another 10 seconds or so, Emma, and then I think we can close and share the results, if that's all right. I feel like we should have a countdown. 10, 9. All right. Okay, I think we can end and share at that point then, Emma. That's great. Thank you. Thank you to all of you that did participate in that poll. So hopefully you can see the results that we've been talking through. Yeah, Matt, what are you seeing here?
So I think a few people had maybe completed it first time round when this was there, and then it's been reset. And interestingly, one of the things that I wanted to pick up on was this question of what is personalization, and I think Kyle's probably answered it in large. But one of the driving factors for us behind Prospectus Plus is this notion of relevancy, and Kyle alluded to it in his slides with the Deakin example, where you could build a list of courses and compare them against one another. The thing that struck us when we started to look at prospectuses was that you get this printed document sent out to people. And in some cases, particularly with universities, we were looking at 100, 110, 120 pages of course listings. And only 3 or 4 of those pages are relevant to the end user. So that was a big factor for us in creating an experience where students could build something around what they wanted. So you know, it is personalization, but it's putting those students in the seat, in control of what they're seeing and the content that they're viewing. So I think that's perhaps for me one of the most powerful things that we've done with personalization in Prospectus Plus. But as Carl's also alluded to, there's so many other options available out there.
I'm really interested to hear, and maybe people could drop this into the chat. So in question 1, we asked, have you introduced personalization at your institution? And 77% of you said yes, but in a limited context. I want to hear what the limited context is. Where have you been introducing personalization into your experiences? If somebody is brave enough to drop that into the chat, maybe we will pick on somebody to talk about that a little bit more. Maybe nobody's going to put that in chat now as a result, I guess.
Yeah, you've deterred people.
I've deterred them. Yeah.
Not normally shy, so I think we'll be all right.
All right, good to hear.
Or even if anyone wants to turn the mic on and talk to us, that's also fine. They're all busy typing, aren't they?
Also, I think what the poll perhaps doesn't cover is what kind of challenges and problems have you encountered in trying to use personalization in your marketing efforts? That's another thing I'd be really interested to hear about.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually, Matt.
Has anybody tried to implement personalization and hit any barriers with that?
Yeah, please feel free to turn your mics off and have a chat with us. We don't bite. Oh no, everyone's still busy typing, I think. I can see your faces looking downwards. I think probably a lot of the time the challenge for colleges more than anything is probably to do with the systems they use. Because a lot of college systems are not sort of marketing focused necessarily. They're kind of having to be used because it's the chosen system of the college, and it's a kind of basic CRM, but doesn't really give us the capacity from a marketing function that we might.
We have someone in chat. Somebody answered. Thank you, Matthew. Not our Matthew, I promise you. So Matthew says more on ads. So using student focus groups to gain wants, soft factors, needs, hard factors, then map this on geographic basis and apply to personalized messaging on these to align these. Idea is to boost engagement, ROI by campaign. So it sounds like geographic is something that's really important. And I can totally understand that. I imagine some of you might experience turf wars between you and rival colleges. Maybe I don't know if you kind of use ads to target those in slightly extended areas and try to convert those, but that's really interesting about how location could become a factor. I think the ads thing, it kind of doesn't surprise me. I think ads, part of their whole sell back in the very early days of ads, it was about personalization, but particularly interesting as we move into like a post-cookie landscape, and advertising is changing so dramatically next year that will colleges be able to rely on that sort of personalisation in advertising so much next year, or have, I mean, for yourself, Matthew, you know, have you started to think about how you could do that sort of personalisation, but in that post-cookie world, away from advertising at the moment? I think what I take away from the question is that there's certainly, I mean, I think 92%, if my math serves me correctly, 92% of you say that you're already using personalization in some way, shape or form, or you're not, but you'd like to. So 92%, that's massive, are saying that you think personalization is important and you're interested in using it. And there are contexts in which you're currently not using it. So I guess my question is, what do you want to get out of personalization? Is it just a conversion tool, or is it more than that? Does data come into this? Are you looking to get more data, more personalized data that you can use to target thereafter? Why is it that you have such an interest in personalization?
While people are considering that, your point about ads is a valid one, because naturally when we test creative, we have A/B tests, and then we work out like which message resonate, and then we become more personalized as we are going on down the funnel. And with the destruction of cookies, the removal, I know Google keeps kicking it down the track, wasn't it? Like this year was the last year, and then it's next year. I don't know what they're going to do, but certainly the replacement technologies that are coming into play, they're much harder to get that one-to-one, that sort of feeling going in that ad space. And you know, if you look at other personalization tools that are based around content, like what you're doing with Prospectus Plus. That's not a plug. I'm just saying it's the example that came into my head. But this is based on a student actually giving their personalized data to you in a safe environment. It's on your website. You know, this is data that you control. Whereas in third-party sites and ad networks, it becomes a little bit more hazy. So, you know, genuinely, I think the future of this personalization element is built in those sort of exchange for those experiences, like a value exchange. And in the old days, it was good enough to just give someone like a white paper or a PDF download or just the general prospectus. But I think now those elements of personalization are the hook. You can walk away with something that's actually tailored to you and useful to you. So yeah, good point on the ads, because there's no sure way that this is just going to keep delivering going forwards. I don't think even Google knows the answer at this point.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. Catherine, recruitment as part of Keep Warm campaign to ensure conversion from application to enrolment, plus a meaningful connection to college before they start. Such a cool point that is around the meaningful connection. I think people talk about the sense of pride and sense of home and belonging to the institutions that they go to and stuff, and actually fostering that before people even get there. Is such a cool way of looking at it. But then, you know, also the harder side to that comment is, yeah, it's about recruitment. This is about making sure that we're the ones that know people by name, and as a result, they're more likely to convert into applications for us. I think that's I think it's a really smart point. Yeah, all right.
There's a nice piece on that. It's a little bit kind of a different use case to here, and slightly different audience, but it's still education focused. That there's an app called Zemi, and their whole preference, the whole positioning is based around helping students make friends before they go to an institution. And you know, this isn't achieved with like those sort of high first name sort of emails. This is achieved through building communities and places that students can connect, who are at a similar point in the journey. We're not talking about someone who's already at the institution. It's someone else who's going through that same application journey. And you know, I look at that and think, wow, this is this is incredible, because it used to be a case where you just kind of rock up somewhere and hope you meet someone, right?
Yeah.
But now, like you said, there's that expectation to actually
100%.
have those connections.
And they're everywhere. You know, we've often said in marketing, you're not really fighting for attention against other colleges. You're fighting for attention against Netflix, Spotify, and they are personalization engines. You know, every Friday, Spotify comes to me and says, here's some new music that I know that you're going to like, you know, and I love it every time that it comes to me. And it's remarkable, because actually personalization has dramatically moved on from high first name. You know, it's not about that anymore. If that's the limited context that people are working in, you know, just personalized emails of hi John Doe, I think that gets glossed over, to be honest, by most prospects at this stage. And now it's about the context, the hyper relevancy of content that we serve to people. And if you're not kind of serving your offer in a way that meets their personalized needs, then they're likely to really gloss over. It's like, people should really be making their websites like Spotify, so that you can't see 60% of the website content. You can only see the stuff that's relevant to you.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that in question 2, where have you deployed personalization? 0% of responses have done that on their website. But in question 3, 46% of people want to do that on their website. Why is it not happening on the website? Why is it budgetary constraints? Is it, as Emma said, systems that are in the way of this kind of thing?
It's probably budget.
Yeah,
probably budget.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It can be pretty hard to implement, or at least to implement it well, especially if you're looking at bespoke strategies and stuff like that. And you know, without this turning into a shameless plug, well, it's going to, but with Prospectus Plus, that's why we did it, because we make personalization so accessible that with one kind of small budget spend, you're at a point where you've got that personalization engine that probably in the future could power personalization on your website, for example. And I think that, you know, this is something that clearly people are struggling with. I'm really surprised that more people have implemented personalization in their prospectus than they have in their website, because in theory, personalization on your website should be the easiest of all of those to implement. And yet it's clearly something isn't happening there. Someone's asked, is Prospectus Plus an app or a piece of software that's integrated? It's kind of like it's a website. So you can send people to this very bespoke website. People go through this, and it pulls in all the information from your website. So it acts as a digital alternative to your printed prospectus. If anybody is interested in learning more about Prospectus Plus, please do feel free to reach out to us. I'm sure Emma will share all of our details. The website is prospectus.plus. And yeah, we'd be happy to kind of show you and talk to you more about Prospectus Plus. I think I'm going to start wrapping up then, if that's all right, Emma. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for being involved. It's been great to hear your thoughts on this. I hope you found the trend deck from Kyle super useful there. And as I said, if people are interested in learning more about how we are making personalization more accessible to your users and your budget, then please do let me know. Emma, thank you very much for having us. Appreciate it. Over to you.
Very much. Yeah, thanks guys, that's been really useful. As always, I will share this with all the members later on, and yeah, send them to your website for the recording and the slides and everything. So thank you everybody for attending. If you have got any questions, please, you all know my email, just reach out, and I will put the guys' details on SharePoint for you if you want to reach out to them directly. So thanks very much everybody, and take care.